On the afternoon of November 24, 1971, a man walked into Portland International Airport carrying nothing but a black briefcase. He bought a one-way ticket to Seattle for $20 and boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305. The man identified himself as Dan Cooper. Cooper was described by witnesses as a middle-aged man, approximately 6 feet tall, wearing a dark suit, a white shirt, and a black tie with a mother-of-pearl tie clip. He wore sunglasses throughout the entire flight. Flight 305 was a short 30-minute trip from Portland to Seattle with 36 passengers on board. As the plane ascended, Cooper calmly ordered a bourbon and soda. Everything seemed routine until Cooper handed a note to Florence Schaffner, a flight attendant. Schaffner initially slipped the note into her pocket, assuming it was just another man giving her his phone number. Cooper, however, leaned in and quietly said, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Schaffner opened the note. It was neatly printed in capital letters. "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I want $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck ready in Seattle. No funny stuff, or I'll do it." The hijacking begins. Florence Schaffner was stunned but remained calm. She looked over at Cooper, who opened his briefcase just enough to show her what appeared to be several red cylinders attached to wires, a crude but convincing bomb. She quietly walked to the cockpit and relayed the hijacker's demands to the captain, William A. Scott. Captain Scott immediately contacted Seattle-Tacoma International Airport and informed Northwest Orient's ground control. FBI agents were quickly alerted, and plans were set in motion to comply with Cooper's demands. At the time, hijackings were not unheard of, but none had been as meticulously planned or calmly executed as this. Meanwhile, back on the plane, Cooper sat silently, composed, and patient. The passengers had no idea that their flight had just been hijacked. Cooper made no dramatic announcements, no threats, and no panic ensued among the crew. He allowed Schaffner to sit beside him during the flight, explaining that everything would be fine as long as his instructions were followed. Cooper's demeanor was polite, even friendly. The plane circled Puget Sound for 2 hours as the airline worked with the FBI to assemble the ransom money and parachutes. Northwest Orient's president authorized the ransom payment. 20 $10,000 bundles of cash were sourced from local banks, ensuring the bills had random serial numbers. 2 front and 2 back parachutes were obtained from a local skydiving school. The ransom exchange at 5:39 p.m., Flight 305 landed at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. It was dark and rainy, adding to the tension. Cooper allowed the 36 passengers to leave the plane after the ransom money and parachutes were brought on board. The passengers, still unaware of what had happened, walked off the plane, believing they had simply experienced an unexpected delay. Only the flight crew remained on board with Cooper, Captain Scott, First Officer William Radizak, Flight Engineer H.E. Anderson, and Tina Mucklow, another flight attendant. Once the ransom and parachutes were delivered, Cooper released Schaffner and the rest of the crew, leaving only himself and the essential personnel for the next leg of the journey. He handed one of the parachutes to Mucklow and instructed her to demonstrate how to open and fasten it, showing that he was unfamiliar with its specific workings. Then, Cooper calmly outlined his plan to the flight crew. They were to fly toward Mexico City, but there were very specific conditions. The plane must fly below 10,000 feet, with the landing gear down, at a speed no faster than 200 knots, and the cabin unpressurized. These conditions were dangerous, but feasible for the Boeing 727. The plane was also instructed to take off with the rear staircase down, a unique feature of the Boeing 727 that few people knew about. The jump at 7:40 p.m., Flight 305 took off from Seattle under Cooper's directions. The hijacker, sitting alone in the rear of the plane, tied the money bag to his waist and fastened one of the parachutes. Around 8 p.m., Cooper sent Tina Mucklow to the cockpit with specific instructions. The crew was to remain locked in the cockpit and not attempt to interfere with him. As the plane flew southward over Washington State, the cockpit crew noticed something alarming. A sudden change in air pressure, indicating that the rear stairs had been opened. Cooper had made his move. In the freezing stormy night, at approximately 8:13 p.m., somewhere over the dense forests of southwestern Washington, Cooper jumped out of the rear of the plane into the pitch-black abyss. He left behind his tie and a few fingerprints, but the $200,000 in cash was strapped to his body as he vanished into the night. The crew remained in the cockpit until they were certain Cooper was gone. They eventually landed safely at Reno Airport, but by then, Cooper had disappeared. The search begins. The FBI launched one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history, combing the area where they believed Cooper had landed. Over 1,000 military troops and law enforcement officers scoured the woods and mountains. They searched for days but found nothing. Not Cooper, not the parachutes, and not a single trace of the ransom money. The theories were endless. Some believed Cooper died in the wilderness, unable to survive the stormy weather and rugged terrain. Others thought he survived the jump and went on to live a quiet life under a new identity. Despite countless efforts, no conclusive evidence ever surfaced. For years, the FBI kept a close eye on the case, checking banknotes for serial numbers matching the ransom money. Then, in 1980, a boy digging in the sand near the Columbia River found a decaying bundle of cash. It was later confirmed that the bills matched the serial numbers from the D.B. Cooper ransom. But this discovery only deepened the mystery. How did the money end up there, hundreds of miles from Cooper's suspected drop zone? Theories and suspects. Over the years, numerous suspects have been proposed as D.B. Cooper. Some were career criminals with aviation experience. Others were veterans with skydiving knowledge. None of these suspects were definitively linked to the case. The FBI investigated hundreds of leads but never identified Cooper. One of the most prominent suspects was Richard Floyd McCoy, a Vietnam veteran and skydiver who hijacked a plane in a similar fashion in 1972. However, McCoy was ruled out because he didn't match the descriptions given by the Flight 305 crew. Other suspects included Kenneth Christensen, a former Northwest Orient Airlines employee who had knowledge of the aircraft, and Robert Rackstraw, a former Army paratrooper with a questionable past. Yet, each time the FBI got close to a suspect, something wouldn't line up. Cooper remained a ghost. Legacy of D.B. Cooper. To this day, D.B. Cooper's true identity remains unknown, and the case remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. His daring escape, flawless execution, and disappearance continue to captivate the public's imagination. D.B. Cooper didn't just hijack a plane, he hijacked a moment in history. He pulled off a crime that should have been impossible and vanished without a trace. Whether Cooper survived the jump or perished in the wilderness, his story has become the stuff of legend. In the end, Cooper's greatest victory was not the $200,000 he stole. It was the myth he created, one that has outlived him and continues to baffle, inspire, and mystify everyone who hears it. The case remains open, but the answer to what happened to D.B. Cooper may have disappeared with him into the stormy skies of that November night in 1971. Conclusion. D.B. Cooper's hijacking stands as a testament to human ingenuity and mystery. Was he an experienced criminal, or did he simply get lucky? Did he survive, or did he meet his end in the wilderness? Perhaps we will never know the full story, but the legend of D.B. Cooper will always be remembered as the man who vanished into thin air, leaving only speculation, theories, and unanswered questions behind.